Good morning and welcome back. I am your host, Amelie Starchild, and I'll be your host today for Who Am I? That show, which is a stream of consciousness discussion in non-resistant mode. That's basically where I'm in non-resistant mode for an hour and a half to 2 hours as we discuss who we are as a species, who we are as powerful creators, who we are as individual units, mobile units that are designed in a particular way to integrate with one another in a particular way, to be able to have access to all the information that all of humanity has. We should. And we wouldn't have to edit ourselves if we would come to an understanding of who we really are, so that we quit mistrusting each other in the wrong places and trusting each other in the wrong places. How do we achieve sustainability, which I think is the holy grail? Sustainability, and not just gasping desperately in a post-apocalyptical hellscape. I'm talking about us really getting our sea legs underneath us and getting the hang of actually being here on planet Earth. Taking care of one another, offering as a ground state a state of kind, cooperative opportunity, blind to a lot of the specific details that sometimes get in our way. Like, oh my gosh, which color we are. That's like the dogs being all prejudiced against the chocolate labs, or some nonsense. It really is. So who am I? And what's the point of the discussion? I have a thesis statement behind the discussion. I think with this oral, it's like an oral meditation, an oral exercise. And what it amounts to, for me, is Project Who Am I, of course. Of course it would be. And my impulse to put it out on the internet, thinking I'm teaching you all by virtue of anytime any person pulls together their whole self in a package and puts out what it looks like from where they are, it's very informative to the group around you. And all of the gurus pretty much that I have followed have done that. And it's their own individual wholeness that when observed from the outsider, from another human being's perspective, vantage point, it shows you things, it reflects something back to you about the nature of the Almighty. The allness, the big thing that we all have in common, I have in common with you absolutely everything, 100% of everything, except for I am viewing it from where I'm standing on the grid, and you're viewing it from where you're standing on the grid. Other than that, that turns out to be a significant difference. However, that's the only difference there is. Other than that, we share the whole thing. Now, having said that, I've got to open up some dimensions here, because it actually has way more dimensions than just the simple three-dimensional single reality that all of us somehow in our imaginations believe that we share. There's more to it than that if you believe Bashar, and I actually do believe Bashar because his his multidimensional thing does jive. It jives with the rest of what I know to be true and what I have added together into a wholeness in my own mind. So it does jive with it. And so it's like, well, I kind of believe you're right. He says billions of times a second. And so I can only imagine he's talking about the Planck time unit. And it's true. Every Planck time unit, you are blinking completely out and coming completely back in. And so it makes sense that what he says is that as you shift through these time, you keep shifting when you change your state of being, probably. Now that's my words. When you change yourself, when you advance the cause of the world, in a way, the world that you were in still exists. You left that dimensional world. You didn't change the world, you changed worlds. And it all happens, it's a personal thing that you do personally. And so the whole point of the thing, the whole point of the exercise is personal development. If you think that the project is go out and fix the conditions of the world, well, ultimately that's the like step 2, 3, or 4 goal. It is a byproduct of what you're looking for. And the world around you will change. And you might even imagine that you changed it. But you changed yourself and you dialed into a different version of the world, one that is more advanced, one that is more in alignment or more. What do I mean when I say advanced? To me, advanced means a world that knows who it is, has self-reflective identity, like recognizes who we are, and is operating with the rules of the game on the ground in the optimal, harmonious manner. That's advanced. And what that is going to produce is joyous, beautiful, absolutely diverse co-creation. We have to get out of each other's business in a way. We should be in each other's business up to the point of making sure that whatever the F you're doing, you keep it peaceful and you keep in mind that you are co-creating with a greater field. It's not just you. Now, as you play the winning game, so you want to win, that's a given. You want to win, that's a given. Now, are you playing a win-win game or are you playing a win-lose game? And that makes a really big difference, how you have placed the order of that at the top of your iOS in the operating system of your consciousness. It's right up there. It's in the main operating system. It's over in engineering. It's in engineering. It has to do with your. Let's see. I ought to use Star Trek metaphors for this. It's in your operating system of the computer system, in the mechanicals of engineering. It's all there. What are your primary assumptions about the world? And what do you believe is the object of the exercise? The object of the exercise question makes everything different. And so I don't even want to argue with you about the details of reality until we have agreed to some extent what the object of the exercise is. And I don't even want to talk to you unless you believe that ultimately the object of the exercise is sustainability. Because frankly, there's other people who believe different things. There are people who believe that the object of the exercise is to go through some sort of apocalyptic moment because that's just the divine order of things. And in the end, at the gates of heaven, God will sort us out after the apocalypse. And so the notion of trying to figure out what our sustainable path is isn't even a thing, to them. They are driving us intentionally towards apocalypse. Now, Hitler had a different thing going on wrong in his, although it's related, he had a different thing going on wrong in his operating system and in his object of the exercise and what he thought, what his primary assumptions were about the rules of the game, what makes you strong, what is strong, how is it configured, what are we supposed to be doing. He thought, and this is crackpot, he thought that it was absolutely necessary that he be in conflict with the world around him, because it was only through, the testing of battle and the survival of the fittest demands a conflict, and only then can we decide who is the fittest of the operating systems, because he very ideologically believed in the system of the autocrat and the master race, and that there were people who were better than other people, and all of the ones who were not fit needed to be disposed of so that the strong ones who were left would be stronger. It was almost like him being the wolf in the woods, taking out the weak. And that somehow that would, I don't know. It was totally flawed, and my eyes just spin when I think about this. And he was destined for a big old crash, because all of that is completely wrong and designed for disharmony and chaos. It was a big storm of Shiva-based, demonic-based, Loki energy that swept through humanity and knocked down the systems that we had going, the patriarchal and the autocratic, the aristocratic, because World War II was actually World War I Part 2. World War I was never settled. It really was never settled. And so you have to, when you translate the meaning of what happened in World War II, you've got to understand it as a continuing expression of certain energies that were playing out in the world, and part of it was blessed because part of it was knocking down things that really needed to be knocked down. We had Jim Crow and the racial suppression of black people in society, and most especially in the American Southwest, but kind of simmering out there in racist minds all over the world, and really, really effectively keeping any population that wasn't lily white all over the world, keeping it down in the out in the colonies of the British Empire. Now, they may have been the first ones to outlaw slavery on the island of the UK, on the island, but their supporting of subjugating kinds of sentiments. We went to Africa and lived there for 2 years. We didn't just go there on a trip. We went there and lived there for 2 years, which that really makes a difference. If you think you understand the way other people are, or how the rest of the world is, and how it all adds up. You're sitting there pronouncing what you think the world ought to do and, what you believe it is. There's nothing like going and living someplace for a couple of years and really getting the feel of. So we went and lived there for a couple of years, and what was my point? Why did I want to discuss my having gone there? Because it's a different perspective, but I'm not sure where I was going. I had a bigger picture. We were talking about history. We were talking about Hitler, for crying out loud, which is a favorite academic subject of mine. Yeah, I was talking about the expression of the world wars and how, because we were rigid in how we were and not understanding who we held on to certain forms past when it would have been those who make peaceful evolution. This is actually the way to put it. Though, and maybe this is how he did put it. Those who make peaceful evolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable. Because the expansion will happen, and if you hold on to the form and hold on to the form and hold on to the form and do not allow it to morph naturally, peacefully, flexibly, creatively, blessedly, the way it wants to, if you would just allow it to be and lean into the expansion, lean into the evolution, if we would all do that, if we would understand, diversity is a great thing. Quit fighting diversity, people. There's a great deal, there's a lot of people out there fighting other people's right to be different because they want us all to be the same. They think that one thing is the way we ought to be. And so if you're gay, that's wrong. Or if you're all of the things. If you're Catholic, that's wrong. Or if you're Protestant, that's wrong. Or if you're Muslim, that's wrong. Or if you're anything other than Mormon, that's wrong. Or whatever. On and on and on it goes. And our diversity is our strength. Our weakness back before the wars was this rigidity. Across the planet, humanity had an idea of who we were, and it was quite, it was not diverse the way it is now. And you may not like the diversity that you see out there, but it used to exist, but it was deeply suppressed. It was in the closets everywhere, and it was in the attics everywhere, and the dungeons everywhere, and the basements, and people were hiding themselves all over the place. People were still gay, back when we pretended that they weren't. And those urges that they felt had to be deeply suppressed, and you can only imagine the kinds of psychological disorders everybody was suffering from. Now, it looks like we're suffering from a lot of psychological disorders, that's true, but it's all out in the open. And the truth of the situation is that your neighbor is your unknown self made visible. And every one of us is a personal integer. Did you know that? You are the whole universe, every one of us. Now, what does that mean? I could sit there and get starry-eyed about that, and some people do, and get you transformed into this, but the fact is that it's true. You are an integer. And what does that mean? Well, the one is all, and the all are one. And there is a wholeness about us, an energy that connects us all, that matrixes us together in a really cool way. Now, I'm not going to push against anything that anybody else is saying, because you know what? In your way, wherever you are, from whatever you are saying, you are there is a blessed way from where I'm standing that you're absolutely correct. And part of the problem is everyone's trying to subtract themselves, not understanding that there is a place where they are very correct. You know? And when you try to throw when you try to throw it all out, you're throwing baby out with the bathwater. You're throwing yourself out with all of the stuff that's not you, and that doesn't feel good either. And so you've got to understand, you got to be humble and understand where you're wrong is where you think that everyone else is not right. And where you think that you aren't right, that's where you're wrong. So you're not wrong, you're right. But what are you right about? That's really a good question. I discovered in my second marriage, my dearly beloved and dearly departed late husband, Jorge, we shall call him for the record here, to protect the innocent. He was a mess in a way, but I actually absolutely loved this man. He was darling. He was sweet. He loved children. He loved energy too. He was an electrician, and his quick mind was always scanning the world for information about energy. Well, things like he was interested in passive energy systems in home structures made of recyclable or cheap, easy to source material. So, like, for instance, he had his eye on a kind of construction using straw bales and stucco and whatnot. There's somehow you do this, I don't know how long it really lasts. I don't know if he was the one that looked into that. But it was that sort of thing. There's also the kind of construction, you can see it in some really old adobe homes here in the village that I live in New Mexico. You can see where it's kind of a system that has bricks that keep it warm or keep it cool, and a structure of how the glass is set to come in the windows during some times of the year and shine on these bricks and heat them up during the day, radiating warmth in the night. And that kind of idea, that was what he was very excited about. And wouldn't I just love to have him around right now? The problem is that emotionally he was a train wreck. There was no emotional stability in his, but he had an excitement and a thirst for life. He was very, very vested in in the here and the now. And I just could not move as fast as he could. But he was not stable, and he ended up dying in an automobile crash in 1996 at the age of 36 years old. And that's the way that is. So where am I in all of this? What was I talking about? Who am I? Who are we? Who are we? And how does my discussions, my daily discussions of the topic, if you're part of the daily discussion, it's always the same subject. Who am I? What's my design? But I'm coming at it from a particular way. Now, of course, if I had 1,000 people in the room, they would then discuss all of from their perspective in 1,000 different ways. And my vision, my focus on the abstract of our situation in a particular way would get lost. I'm sort of pointing at the mathematics of this. There's a mathematical abstraction at the center of this that is common to us all. That it's a little nugget. It's like in a nutshell kind of a thing. Swallow this nutshell, and it overlays over your own. We all overlay all of our there's a way that we're looking at it that overlays with all of how everyone else is looking at it. You add everyone else in, swallow everyone else. The full picture, the actual picture of actual reality comes when we add all of us together. Now, that's hard to do. And you just kind of have to do it from a general place. And you start out by just swallowing those of us that resonate with you better. So I've swallowed the gurus that I've swallowed. And who are they? They are ones who are they are making an attempt to describe who we are and what is this energy force that connects us all together. How does it function? What are the rules of the game? Using those rules of the game, how would we set up our collective systems in order to be harmonious with one another and harmonious with the rest of the field in order that we should achieve sustainability? So that we are no longer destroying our mother, no longer destroying Eden, Gaia, Mother Earth, however you want to put it. Sixth mass extinction means that we are destroying our activity, our day-to-day activity which is our systems, which are just humming along, creating goods, farming for food, producing food production, and food exploitation is the biggest part of what we do. Now, we could recreate abundance, and in small ways we do that. Our orchards are an example of that. But it would be nice if we had systems that didn't hog everything to ourselves and allowed for an abundant, healthy ecosystem around us that sustained more than just human beings. It's going to have to, because an ecosystem that consists of all human plasma is not going to sustain. It has to be more diverse than that. We have to have all the plant life and all the insect life and all of the bird life and all of the amphibian life and all of the fish life and all of the, and da 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 da. There are pillars to everything that is holding everything up, threads, if you will, that weave us all together. And we've got to understand that, because that's part of who am I too. Who am I? I mean this in the broadest discussion possible. Who am I as mankind? Who am I as humanity? Who am I as light spirit being? Which I am, as a matter of fact. That's actually who I really am. I am a continuum of intention. That might be the best way to put it in its most abstract, most basic way. I am a continuum of intention. And my continuum, in my continuum of intention, my intention is to continue. Isn't that interesting? So, what is the purpose of life? The purpose of life is to live. But it's not just to live in gasping agony at the last straw's gasping end of clinging to desperation. And It's not like that. We're here for joy. We are here for joy. Imagine that. I know it seems unlikely, given, but so let's just assume that that's true. Abraham gave me that one, actually, and I did not quite realize that until she pointed it out so many times over and over and over and wove it into the narrative. And I finally went, you know what? You might be right, girl. And the reason that that's true, so it's because our default setting, our setting that says this is the setting where it means everything is in alignment. I've got it right. I've figured it out. I know who I am and I'm working my equipment correctly. The default setting is joy. If you are a baby born into a situation where everyone is being orderly, harmonious, kind, and unified and inclusive in their minds and in their hearts. They are in unity consciousness within their minds. They have locked into the wholeness of everything around them. And they're living that kind of a life and they're being told, who they are and how this works all their life. Their default setting, you don't have to go in there with a screwdriver and change it to anything else, even a sonic screwdriver. You don't have to go in there and tweak it. Your default setting is a joyful one, a loving, inclusive, kind, and broad-based thinking one. That's who you naturally are. Now, we possess a psyche that is very fragile, it turns out, and very impressionable. In the ages of 0 to 7, when you hear things, you just record them. There is no judgment. You just record it as fact. And then later, when you're an adult, that's going to be something you're struggling with, as you still believe it's a scary, dangerous world, or that you are not good enough, or whatever it was that somehow you recorded when you were young from adults who were not in alignment themselves and did not know who they were and did not know what they were doing to you. That's what happened. And so now, what happens when we have a scarred or damaged or misaligned? It's more misalignment. You talk about scarring and damage. It's sort of, why do we have this knee-jerk propensity to pathologize? It doesn't have to be anything wrong with us. It just, when the negative mind is very scarring, though. It really is. And when someone living out their negative self records something on your young psyche, we probably experience... See, I'm saying this all authoritatively, and then somewhere I lost my sure footing, and now I think maybe it's like this. I sort of click in and out of being really sure about what I'm saying and pretty sure about what I'm saying. As me and me try to combine to give you this thesis, this talk, if you will. I'm having a talk. And I'm giving a talk because I'm the only one talking. It can't be any other kind of a program, really, because it's just me sitting here talking. So that's what it is. I'm doing a talk. Someday I'll be able to do this in person. Maybe. I don't know. I do this from my remote location, and I am very, why do you do this? Hold on one second. I'm sorry. I had PC cleaner thing pop up. I need to go reset my preferences so that it doesn't do that between the hours of 5 and 7. Usually that's safe for people, but not for me. That's when I'm working. So the whole question is, who am I? Who am I? Let's get off of me for a minute. Let's get back to our structure. What is our structure? Turns out we are a unit that is comprised of two main aspects. One is the aspect that you are most familiar with. It is your conventional self, the meat aspect of you, your meat vehicle. It's your conventional self, your physical self. It's also vibrational, because all things are vibrational. Even the physical is vibrational. It's just vibrating more densely. And then you have another aspect of yourself. And this is the one that we're going to discuss here for a minute. It is your source energy aspect. And there are a number of ways that you can think of this. Many, many, many ways. And then plus all the ways that mankind has thought about this for, all of history and prehistory besides, probably. As the Holy Spirit, the Holy Ghost. Sometimes it is thought of as God himself moving through you. It's hard to know how to describe what this connection to this allness. There's a lot of ways to describe it. I like to think of it. Now, I don't just like to think of it this way, because to think of it this way first is to both personalize it and then also, unfortunately, to belittle it a little. And so, although it is the one thing, I have to give it another definition in order to fill it back out, because it really isn't the smallness that it sounds like when I tell you that it is, you could think of it as an aspect of your vibrational cosmic anatomy. It's part of your anatomy. But if you think of it as part of your anatomy, then you think of it as being like one of your senses, that is attached to your physical being, such that when you die, it goes away. It is indeed attached to your physical being, but when you die, you go away, but it doesn't. So this aspect of you is actually you. That's the interesting part of this, because you think the other one is you. And in a way, in an immediate, specific way, perhaps it is more closely you. It's more intimately you, maybe. The other one is so intimately you, though. It's hard for me to say that the other one is not more intimately you than your physical you. But it's also more distant. It's more alien. It's more detached. It's how come a lot of people believe that God is somewhere other than where they are, that God is an otherness, as opposed to somehow an integral wholeness that you are integrated with, and a fractal reflection of. As in, you contain the whole thing. You possess a divine magic mirror of reflection that can, if you align it up correctly, can capture the whole picture of the universe coming at you. You are a wholeness, but in your misalignment, you're sort of fragmented, and you come up in pieces. If you would look back on your whole life and go back and pick it all back up, you are an integrated wholeness. What you really have to go back and pick back up is all of your love, because that's who you really are. You are the love that you have left in the road behind you. And even those train wrecks that you ever thought you loved for a minute, and you did love, but then you understood fuller, that they had darknesses, and they had misalignments themselves that were dangerous to you and destructive to your children, perhaps, and all of that. And so you had to get away from them, or the universe separated you from them for, cosmic in cosmic ways. Mine, went away, evaporated in a moment when my children had not passed their 6th birthday. And so then I was left, in the quiet and in the wreckage, trying to figure out the meaning of my life and who am I and what the hell am I doing and what was that, I followed my heart to a gentle, very, very neutral man who already had a momentum of stability going and really didn't have much in the way of a roller coaster of emotions, which gave me years and years and years of peace with which to pull myself back together and try to figure out who am I? You got to know this project Who Am I, even though I present it outward, it's all about me understanding who I am and where I have come from and how I had to come to grips with forgiving him, understanding him. I actually want to weep in some ways because had I had a clearer understanding at the time, I could have helped him personally, perhaps, by being stronger in my own way, by being more stable in my own emotional position. He pushed my buttons, and I went over to the dark side myself. I fell into negative emotion and blame and shame and anger, and there was all kinds of things. For many years, I wanted to dig him up and kick his ass. That was an expression I used to say because it was so ridiculously over the top. Of course I'm not going to dig him up and kick his ass. Was he driving drunk? He died in a foreign country. He died in Mexico. And I don't speak the language, and I don't know how to, and I never really felt the strong desire to hire a private investigator to really figure out. We did get the official report, the death report. It was a monstrous, many pages, all in Spanish. We got it translated into English, and I could tell you that I already know conflicts about who was the driver and who was not the driver, and what that situation was. If he was driving, then both of them are idiots, and I guess I still have a little charge there, but you know what? It's kinder than it used to be. I used to take it so personally because he was putting us all at such horrific risk. His risky behavior was going to throw him. He was going to get thrown in prison for driving drunk. That is what was going to get us, and I was going to end up being emotionally chained to a human being that was, I was going to have to figure out how to open up that channel of love. And that's not what I wanted to do. That wasn't the life exercise I wanted to do. And if he put us in that position, that was where I was going to have to go, because I knew I could not turn my back on love. And I did love him, and he was the freaking father of my children, and they were going to love him. and I loved my children more than anything. And there was no way I was going to be able to divorce us from him if he ended up in prison. So instead, he ended up killing himself on a Mexican road. Perhaps, or the other guy was driving, I don't know. I don't know. In any case, I had to go back in my life and pick up the pieces of my love. I did love him. I did love him. All of those that I have ever loved. I have a story, and I could tell you my narrated story, my story. This is the story of my love. And it's ridiculous. I know you could look at it from all kinds of perspectives, and I can find the perspective where when I see my story, it seems ridiculous to me. Who the hell am I? You know, I, 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 I cannot claim that I was following any kind of a real path. I did not believe the path my people had laid out for me. My people being my parents, they were religiously confused, they were emotionally confused, they were divorced, and at least one of them, the one that I was most connected to, was unhappy. And so I didn't. The other one was emotionally distant and hard to identify with from any kind of, well, you did this, so this is how I will follow in your footsteps, Dad. Who was fighting on Tarawa at 17, getting humanity out of the Second World War or into the Second World War, however you want to look at that. It was all of us. It was a, joint participation effort, the Second World War. But I couldn't follow in his footsteps. I couldn't follow in my mother's footsteps. Nothing was repeatable. Nothing was sustainable. And here we were living in a world where Rachel Carson was telling us for the first time, hey, we're killing the planet. We're killing the life forms on this planet. And if we're not careful, we're going to wake up some spring where there are no birds. Do you want to live in a world with no birds? I'll tell you what, I live down in the Rio Grande Basin, down in the middle of the Rio Grande Valley. The middle Rio Grande Valley, actually. And less than a quarter of a mile from the river itself. And I'm in the green zone. I have irrigation rights, and so I have trees and grass and shrubbery and all kinds of vinage and wonderful things going on around me. And I put out bird feeders, and I have so many birds that come and visit me. And to imagine a world without birds, it's just unthinkable. It's unthinkable. I love. So, I turned my feelings off for the longest time. I had to turn them off because my focus was focused outward at the outward material world, and I was looking at the material world from an outward position, and from that position, so much news was coming to me about bad news about what was going on in the biofield out there. It was breaking my heart every step of the way. How mean we are, how cruel we are, how destructive we are, how murderous we are, from the and then even the byproducts of our activities, how destructive they are. The drowning polar bears. That's the byproduct. The direct would be like the torturing of Korean food dogs. Oh my God, we're horrible. We're horrible. And then other tragedies would be like orphaned elephants, orphaned by poachers who, when they orphan these baby elephants, lose their culture. And then they don't know how to be. And then they become destructive. They're the rogue elephants, wreaking havoc on villages that then have to be put down by the, local animal control. It's terrible. So anyway, I don't want to get lost on a jag about that. I mean, for heaven's sakes, you pick where you want, what rat hole you want to go down. When you look at it from that perspective, you just can't keep looking at it and keep accepting more and more information from the outside world, because so much of it just stings. It's like poke, like cattle prodding yourself. But when you line yourself up differently, when first of all you realize that this is a universe of attraction and everyone is getting what they are attracting, it's not assertion, it's attraction. And all of us who have control of a secondary point of attraction, which means all of us here in physicality, we have our source point of attraction, and then we have our physicality point of attraction. It's two points of attraction that you are, and your emotional guidance system is telling you how well you are blending, or how not well you are those two beings are blending. That's the meaning of everything. And your default setting is joy. Remember that? Your default setting is joy. And so when you fall into anything less than at least contentment, because all of the animals around, if you see them just hanging out, they might be a little hot, they might be a little thirsty, and you might be able to get them to a state where they are very hot or very thirsty, and their immediate physical suffering, the physicality of their suffering is real. Mentally, they do not suffer as much as we do. They are just hanging out in source. They are at least content. They are feeling the impulses from source. They feel themselves as a whole being. They know that they are the whole thing. They feel themselves like, when you are in less than contentment, then somehow you are getting your own equipment out of alignment, because you should be in a state of at least contentment, and then you are actually you are better poised to fix the world, because that contentment is a personal thing. It has to do with your place in the world, your place in the universe. Do you feel stable in the universe? And if you can say yes, then now you can play with this life. You don't have to take it so personally. You don't have to take it so seriously. You can play with it joyfully, lovingly, kindly, and more effectively too, by the way. And from a vibrational standpoint, which is actually better poised to give you what you want, because the universe is vibrational, and if the vibration comes first, and the vibration has to feel good, or the manifestation that immediately follows is going to reflect how bad you just felt. The vibration is primary. The vibration is primary. What's the object of the exercise? The object of the exercise is joy, is harmonious co-creation, is understanding who we are, I came across this problem a minute ago. Self-awareness, that's the word, self-awareness. Because when we truly understand who we understand that when we look out from our own eyes, we see ourselves reflected back in all the eyes looking back at us, but only if we are focused on the love, because the love is the only part that's really you. You could say it's the only part that's real, although the reason you say it that way is because you're directing your focus that way. Obviously, there is some other flat aspect of something that is real in some way, in some dimension. There is some two-dimensional thing that's but when you say it, only the love is real, that's what you're looking for, because that's who you are. And when you recognize that, then as you look at others, you see yourself in them. And you're like, oh. And then you realize why Khalil Gibran said the words, your neighbor is your unknown self made visible. Oh, I see what direction you mean that in. And of course, you don't mean that I have to just disappear in the allness. Au contraire. Au contraire, diversity is the name of the game. And the way you honor the Almighty is you be your individual, diverse, authentic self as fully as you can. That's how you do it. Don't sacrifice yourself for the allness. Be yourself for the allness. And and as you do it, you express to the others as they consume you, in a nutshell, that abstract there's a characteristic that overlays, that when you abstract it, it applies generally to you and generally to me. And that's where we are all one, where the mathematics of that, and I believe, it's not just I believe, I can see, this is the mathematics that Nassim Haramein and all of his group have been describing for the last 12 years. The first paper of this was published in 2012. It was published, it's perhaps an auspicious on the one hand and an unfortunate choice of date on the other hand, 12/12/2012, because I'm sure that a lot of people just dismissed it as, oh, that's that, voodoo woo woo, new agey crap, and it doesn't mean anything. We have to pay no attention to that. Well, that happened in 2012. That was when Nassim Haramein published his first paper. And I'm not sure which one that one would be. I could make a guess by looking at the papers published over at ResearchGate. Where is this? Let's see. The first one listed here is the electron and the holographic mass solution. I actually do not know if that was the first one he did. I don't know what the date of this publication is. The Unified Space Memory Network, and from cosmogenesis to consciousness, probably not that one either. Resolving the Vacuum Catastrophe, the Generalized Holographic Approach. Unified Physics and the Information Network of Awareness. Actually, I don't know what his first paper was. There's all of those. His latest paper was back in last September, so it's been a year ago. It was late September, so it's coming up on a year. That one is The Origin of Mass and Nature of Gravity, and I actually captured a little bit of that one. It's one of my slides if you're a regular listener. There it is, Origin of Mass and Nature of Gravity. And there's the full abstract trying to explain to you how these vacuum fluctuations are creating what we call the apparent reality, apparent physical reality, the atoms and such, protons and planets and stars, quasars, clusters, galaxies, all of the goodies. Comets, Cupids, Donners, Blitzens, all of that. So what it is we live in a universe that is this plasma made of Plancks. And let's see, I'm going to go back to we'll do this one. I'm going to start doing more of these cold ones as we move into fall and winter. I enjoy these when it's cold outside. I just need a background, a peaceful background. It's mostly just me talking. Occasionally I will throw up a slide, and then sometimes I forget it's up there and it'll just hang there, and so you can let your eyes get off of it. If I change to another slide, I will mention it so that you can look that way if you want to, so that, you can, it underpins what I'm talking about. And I'm lost now. I can't remember what I'm talking about. Who am I? Who am I? How is this going to get us off fossil fuels? Oh, I was talking about Nassim and the math and the papers. The first movie that came out to describe the work that he did and what he's trying to say about the matrix of the universe that does connect us all. This energy connects us all. And what the energy is doing is through these Planck frequencies. A Planck is a tiny, tiny, itty bitty, itsy witsy frequency, really, really tiny. Apparently, the universe is solid packed Plancks. They appear to be just jiggling at sort of a random function of, like, they just cancel each other out to the random function. And so most of physics doesn't really pay any attention to that because they don't know what to do with that. It just sort of all cancels out. There is a screening process within our consciousness that's sort of screening it out. Otherwise, it would kind of feel like we're walking through gel or some sort of a buzzy, I don't know. We would feel it as full. Space is full, it's not empty. But our consciousness is screening it out. So when it organizes, when it is thrown into spin, we see it as the material world, and we call it protons. And we call the spinning force of that vortex of, Plancks spinning at the center of that proton. That's what that proton is it's a vortex of Plancks that has gone into spin. What causes the spin is gradient density in the field, just like what causes a hurricane. Difference in density on the surface of the water caused by a warming in the temperature throws that hurricane into motion. That's the same thing that is throwing protons into motion, that is throwing planets into spin, that's throwing stars that's creating stars, that's creating planets, that's creating galaxies, that's creating all of these things, big black holes and little black holes, and it's all spin. Spin is fundamental, and space is full. Think of it as, so it's like space is like a cup of coffee with cream in it. And we've only been counting the cream. We have not been counting the coffee. Where it goes into spin, we call it matter. But where it doesn't go into, where it's not organized, it's still the coffee. That's what the dark matter is. The dark matter and the dark energy. It's the fullness of this space that we haven't been counting. All of the Plancks in the field, when they organize, we call that an atom. We call it a planet. We call it, and when it isn't organized, when it's just jiggling, where it's just fluctuating, that's the Dirac sea. That's the 0-point energy field, which even at its resting state, where there's no visible matter or any of that kind of action going on, at its resting state, it's alive with almost an infinite amount of energy. That's source energy. And when you understand the structure and understand that you are made of that structure, and your consciousness is coming out of that structure, and all of reality is coming out of that structure, and we are all one with the field of this structure, when you start looking at the world that way first, and meditate on that for a while first, and ponder the implications of who you really are and what you're really capable of, and how you are creating your own reality, and how we are all co-creating our collective reality, how that all works, now turn back to the physical world and readdress our problems. Don't look at our problems from the ignoramus, nose to the glass, deeply entrenched in negative emotion, imagining that we are what we are not. Let's don't attack our problems from that perspective. Let's attack our problems from a state of alignment. And actually, we will find that we're not attacking our problems, we're tackling our problems. Tackling our problems. But that's not what it's going to look like. It's going to be, let's set our systems up in a beautiful, joyful, co-creative, blessedly harmonious and a win-win, each other supporting kind of a manner. Because when we all do better, we all do better. And when we all do really well, including all the non-human, all of us, because we are not just the morphogenetic field of humanity. The quantum field does not stop there. We aren't just humanity, although that is a distinctive morphogenetic field of data and information that we do participate in. And that's really important too. But that field is part of a bigger field of biology that coats the planet and supports us all. And right now, we are engaged in the middle of something that the people are calling the sixth mass extinction. And I will not rest until I hear it announced that we have turned the corner and we are no longer destroying more species than are popping up all over the place in places where we are re-gardening and reintegrating the wholeness of the systems around us. Recreating the abundance on planet Eden. I call her that purposefully, to pull in the religious people to understand that we are all in this together. All of us crazy folk. I'm crazy in my way. I do not deny it. I have had to learn to accept being this way, just being crazy and going my own way and doing this thing. I don't know why. I don't know what, and I don't know why. I'm just doing it. And I know that I'm a little bit cracked, and we are all. But we are all one being. If we would come back together and integrate ourselves, I think that our schizophrenia would calm. I think that the inflammation would reduce. I think that our heads would clear and we would have a better, clearer understanding of who we are and what we want in this world. I'll tell you what we want. We want, first of all, sustainability, repeatability. Not just, we can sustain this for another 75 years before we turn it into a cinder. That's not good enough, people. That's not good enough, even if it means that, I don't have to worry about it because, F you, I had mine, and I died childless, so I have no investiture in isn't that nonsense? We all are invested in this, with whether we are childless cat ladies or not. We are all vested in this. We need to find our way to sustainability, to repeatability, to our recreated abundance. The abundance of humanity has been created upon with the blood and the skins and the tusks and the flesh of all of the other non-human creatures that we have taken over the world from. And so it no longer belongs to them, it belongs to us. But we have got to re-garden it back. And if we want to do that with a diversity of harmonious, beautiful, kind, less dangerous creatures, so be it. But we need to regarden the planet. We need to recreate the diversity that we wiped out of it in order to create our own. So what we have done in order to create our initial surge of abundance is we have turned all of the truffula trees into thneeds, or most of them anyway, and we can't keep doing that. We have to at some point understand the abundance creating machine so that we can work with it instead of against it. We are in our caterpillar moment, and we have almost chewed the bush down to the nub. And if we don't go into chrysalis soon and turn into butterflies and come out and be different, we are going to gnaw the plant. We're going to destroy the whole thing. Now, in actual fact, the way that the system that has worked that out, the way that works is the caterpillar eats all of the leaves that it can find, and then there aren't any more leaves, and then it goes into, that's almost the trigger. But the plant is not dead, and the caterpillar goes into its chrysalis form, and the plant, probably goes into winter and comes back next spring good as ever. I mean, we're all in this together. This is all going to be fine. It's even designed to be fine, even with all of our problems. We have to have faith, and we have to have understanding in the system. The system is designed to work best when we are in a positive state. But how hard is that to get into a positive state when in our misunderstanding of who we are, we have let it get to where it is? 6th mass extinction, worldwide poverty, wars that still rage, competition and aggression and polarity, and it's not right. It's not right. We're not there. Who am I? Who are we? Now, I believe, it's not just a I believe, I get it. Law of attraction says that I'm in charge of my own little field, and I have ultimate control over what comes to me specifically by virtue of what I vibrate. How I signal to the universe determines how the universe relates to me, how it appears to me, what I rendezvous with, what I resonate with. All of those things are determined by what I emit. It's the 4th rule of creation, the only actionable one, whether you call it the 3rd or whether you call it the 4th, and I've heard Bashar call it both. It depends on what list he's looking at. The one with the 1, 3, 5, 7, 11 download, that the 5 one, he's got it put at the 4th law. The first one being, you exist. There's nothing you can do to change that. And you are actually a needed part of the gang. If you are here, you're here for a reason, and you're needed. Welcome. Now, we got to figure this out. So, number 1, you exist. There's nothing you can do to change that. There's nothing you can do to change any of these. But when you say that after it, it kind of punctuates it. So you exist. There's nothing you can do to change that. And everything is here and now. There is no past. There is no future. There is only the eternal now. Now you can imagine how the wholeness morphed from where it was a minute ago to where it is now, and in that sense you are imagining the past. But you only do it in the here and now. You do not do it in the past. There is no past. There's nothing you can do to change that. But that's cool because it means that all of your power is here and now, because here and now is all there is. You don't have to go into yesterday and think about, oh, if only I had done that, then. No, it doesn't matter. This now is perfect and only now exists anyway. And the information of past is with you now anyway, so you don't have to go back in the past. If you go back in the past, you go back in a place that doesn't exist with your inner being who isn't there because she's looking forward. And so in the past, you can imagine all kinds of terrible things because you're in a place where your inner being is not. And any place that you go where your inner being does not go with you is by definition godless, inner beingless, Holy Spiritless, without your guidance. So don't go there. Don't go there. Everything is here and now. Stay right here and now. Let's see. The third rule is the one is all and the all are one. That's that matrix thing, that the energy that binds us all together, that is organizing us. Actually, it's organizing us into loving, harmonious ways, but it's all spin. It's ultimately the mathematics of it is all spin. And then we come to the fourth rule, which is the only one that is actionable by you, because the others are just statements of the way the universe is. The fourth one is you get what you put out is what you get back. Nothing you can do to change that. No one can make you the exception to that rule. We all abide by that rule. If you are war, war is what you are going to get back. If you are peace, peace is what you are going to get back. And you cannot put out war and expect to get peace back. You can't do it individually, and we can't do it collectively. And I don't know what that means on the ground. I don't know what that means about how reality will have to change. How the manifestation will morph because of this understanding. But there is no way that making the military-industrial complex bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger is going to guarantee any kind of peace on the planet. It's going to be au contraire. To the contrary, it will be just the opposite. It's not an accident that the particular people that were involved in the crazy, insane shootout in Waco were the two groups of people that it was. The one group of people who had been arming to the teeth because they knew there was going to be a showdown with the government, and the government who didn't want them to arm to the teeth and was trying to force them to back down. Law of attraction brought those particular groups together, and they're the ones that got caught in the gunfire. Alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, and the people hoarding weapons in Waco. It's not an accident that those are the ones that came together and made armament fueled war on one another for a few days, and bloody terrible things ensued. Children were killed. It was a terrible thing. Terrible thing. And lots and lots and lots of blame on both sides of that one, by the way. Complete misalignment. People not understanding who we are. People not understanding our own negative emotions, and that we're all in this together, and that we are a field phenomenon, and you get what you think about whether you want it or not. You get what you think about, and that these people, that they spent all their time thinking about the ones because it was their job to stop groups like this, and the other ones just because that's just, they got fixated on whatever, and they thought about it and thought about it and thought about it and thought about it, and that's what they got. It's not an accident. And we're going to get a big old load of something terrible if we don't disarm at some point, if we don't understand who we really are. Now, right now, we might elect a nice person at the top of the order, someone who smiles a lot and who is not overtly ruled by their own negative emotions. You don't want to elect the Loki candidate. You really don't want to elect the Loki candidate. But if your infrastructure is inflexible and not budging in a universe of expansion where the expansion is happening in the field around us and we cannot stop ourselves expanding with it, then when our stuff is too rigid, then it takes bigger things to knock it down. Last century, it took world wars to knock down that rigid structure that we had put in place through the feudal structure and the structure of aristocrats and stuff. If you binge watch Downton Abbey, you'll see it, because the Crawley family, they're Robert Crawley is an earl, and so he's part of the peerdom, and that structure, it's an economic and political structure of the government of England interfacing with the governments of the rest of Europe. There's France, there's Germany, there's America over here. We separated from England a long time ago, so we don't have the aristocratic structure exactly, but through the robber barons of the late 1800s and stuff, we called it different things, but the vibrations pan out kind of the same way. They keep patterning the same way. And the law is actually a kind of roadblocks and levee structure and sandbags and such, trying to hold back some of this stuff that we keep doing, that we keep devolving to, all ending up in war at the end of it, and chaos, and the government structure devolving into what do you call that? Autocracies and dictatorships and such. And how our forefathers tried to put forth an outward structure that if we followed it, that it would keep us peaceful. And to some extent, it really has done that, and it has helped us come into this new era of time, which is different from the past eras of time by virtue of our communication systems, our transportation systems, our technology, our energy systems. Everything about us is different than we were a couple hundred years ago. And yet there's a vibrational similarity, and there, as we keep the vibrations start playing out the same way they always have, and our structure that we have is designed to catch it in the kind of way where we can stop the worst from happening, which is the Hitler or the autocrat who wants to take it over and then change it all so that he funnels the power more centrally so that he can get more things done, because we can't get anything done if you have to agree with everybody. And you know what? When Hitler took over, for a minute, everything looked better. As a matter of fact, the rest of the world was still struggling with a terrible depression. And Hitler was out of it a little bit quicker because he put everybody to work. He just said, we're going to do this. And so he just said, all we have this big project, these big projects, building projects, the Autobahn, whatever. He started directing stuff around, and he went from massive unemployment to full employment really quickly. And through the energy of this human workforce, manpower is what we call it, I guess, as opposed to horsepower. Manpower, all of this manpower fueled a renaissance for just a moment, and it was also for just a few. It was at the expense of all of the slave labor that they put into place to make it happen, and then all of the German people were doing all of the better jobs, and the really, really crappy jobs were being done by slave labor and Jews and stuff. So it was a false. I'm not saying we should go back to it. That's, if anybody ever misinterprets me as idealizing anything about the Third Reich, let me go on record right now as saying that I academically study this as sort of the anti-what to do. This is like the enormous visual, common, worldwide illustration of what happens in misalignment, what the structure does in its really raw form when you allow yourself to run with a negative emotion. Hitler was all about us and them, and conflict, and our enemies, and blame of those who have done this to us. And in a way, he was not wrong, but there is a soft essence in there that is not wrong. However, this hard, this negative, this powerful negative, draw the line of conclusion and us and them, this polarizing energy of thing that he did. Totally, 100% really loud illustration of Wetiko disease and this psychic blindness, authoritarian psychosis, which is a disease that afflicts everyone from the authoritarian at the top to all of the individuals down the structure who believe in this authoritarian structure, in the us and them, and the belief in the strong man leader, and seeing it judgmentally from without instead of allowingly from within. It's all of that rolled into one. That's what the problem is. So you could blame Hitler for sure, but you can blame all the Jews for going along with that and believing in that us versus them paradigm. But you know what? That's where we went wrong too, because the us versus them paradigm does not all of a sudden become valid when the us is the allies and the them are Nazis. It actually does not. Now, I'll grant it to you. There is a perspective on that where I can absolutely see an us and them. I see what you're saying. I get it. I see that. But you know what? A bigger frame out, bigger data flow, larger frame of information, there is no us and them. And ultimately, our sustainability on planet Earth and our ability to connect to one another efficiently and joyfully and abundantly and sustainably is going to depend on us understanding the paradigm we are actually in and who we actually are, how our equipment works, what the laws of the universe are, what you actually need in order to survive, and what you don't need to survive, and who you really are. Who am I? I allude to this abundance. I think that the future abundance the abundance creating machine that could be humanity, as opposed to the scarcity creating machine, which is what we are in that mode now. We are coming to the last leaves on the bush before we are throwing large systems of um, life-sustaining motion out of whack on planet Earth. We are doing that in big ways. The warming of the waters are slowing the flow of the circulation system that is supposed to be flowing from the very cold in the Arctic, circulating the waters down to the warm at the equator, and then back up as the waters warm and the ice melts. It's all kind of becoming more still. Those waters are not flowing the way they should, and all of these things are going to have an effect. And game is going to be over if we don't do something about it. And I think, from my perspective, I don't know what to do. I am a retired old woman, and I am married to a retired old man. I am not in the midst of any kind of existent organizational structure. At some point, perhaps an organizational structure will be birthed from this position, this understanding. I know that there is a lot of people out there that I would resonate with, and I go to seminars and I totally resonate with these people. Absolutely no. Maybe I need to go back to a seminar and start passing out my YouTube channel so that people can start tuning into it. Maybe I get cards made up. All kinds of interesting things. Up until this moment, I haven't really wanted a large following because I haven't understood how I would deal with that. In actual fact, if I can keep it disconnected from me anyway, and I stay small, that's what I would like anyway. I only want my life to change incrementally in soft, small ways that I call. I choose where I go and who I see and what I meet. I've always been like that. My capacity for momentum is, I want to see some momentum, but I want to see it come from a place where I am standing in a very still place. Very stable. My own personal stability has been my greatest I'm not going to call it goal, because I haven't really even known that that's what I was striving for. I didn't know that my own stability was the point. Your own stability brings with it your ability to navigate through the waters of this multiverse in a stable manner, where you're calling the shots and your eyes stay clear and you aren't blindsided by the creatures in the labyrinth, that pop out and take you away. Who am I? I say that the show is Who Am I in reference to source energy. And what is source energy? It's this Planck field, this divine ether fluid plasma that the universe is made of, that you are made of, that we are all made of. Let's have fun with this. Let's make it work. When you turn to the universe with an attitude, when you can bring yourself to an attitude, a state of being that is playful, then when you turn and look at the world, it's softer. It becomes like clay. Your attitude of play turns the universe to clay. And when you think of it harshly, you turn it to iron. You turn it to harsh, cold, immovable, intractable stone. And it's your attitude that's the only difference there. Your attitude is the only difference, at least from your perspective. And your perspective is the only one you have to deal with. So that's why it's really important. Your perspective is really, really, really important. Your selfish perspective is really important, and it is important to the universe that you include yourself in the win, on the win, 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 win. Don't sacrifice yourself for the group. Make sure that in the equation, you win along with everyone else winning. You're looking for the win-win position. That is where your inner being is standing. She is standing in the win-win spot, saying, come this way, come this way, come this way. You do not have to choose or. It can be and. And as a matter of fact, it is and. It is and. It is not an or universe. It is an and universe. You can subtract nothing. It is all integral wholenesses everywhere, and subtraction is not an option. Now, focus is an option, and that's the difference. So Abraham talks all the time about, don't focus on the negative stuff. Just don't focus. Just look somewhere else. But don't subtract what you aren't looking at. If you caught a glimpse of it, it's in the picture, sorry. But you do not have to focus on it. You can focus somewhere else. And as a matter of fact, I would suggest that you do. But you cannot subtract it. And as a matter of fact, being the student of World War II that I am, and the Holocaust specifically, and the Nazi phenomenon, that whole thing, that psychological, how the hell did that shit show happen? That sort of academic thing. Being that kind of a student, that's just, it's distressing. I led in too far, and now I don't know exactly what I was where I was going with that. I just know that our negative self is the demon, and it really isn't. It doesn't have a cosmic source out there in the universe. Our negative self is simply a misunderstanding of our own equipment as we go in thought to places where we do not take our inner being with us, as in the past or in the future. Now you can you can maybe can you go into the past and take your inner being with you? Well, only if you recognize. You can go into the information of the past, for sure. But you're doing it right now. And while you're doing it right now, I would suggest you take your inner being with you. And this is what it means to do that. When your inner being is with you, those thoughts resonate with her, and that feels really good. And we call that positive emotion. And when your thoughts do not resonate with your inner being, that feels bad, and we call that negative emotion. Now, it doesn't mean, your negative emotion does not mean that there is not a condition in the field right now that you're observing that you don't like. It doesn't mean that that's not true. It is true. There is a condition that you don't like, present. You're looking at it, you don't like it. That's what your negative emotion, first of all, tells you. But it tells you something else. It tells you that your broader perspective is looking at it different. So even though, yes, condition, I don't like it. But my inner being is looking at it from a position that doesn't feel like this. So I need to find a bigger thought. You find one that resonates, it feels good. You find one that doesn't resonate, it feels bad. It's the thoughts that you are spinning from your observation of the condition that you do not prefer that's causing the problem, and causing your inability to change the condition that you that you don't like into one that you would rather like. So the fifth law of creation, I don't think I even said that last one. After I said what you put out is what you get back, I don't think I ever finished. The last one is everything changes except for the laws. There's nothing you can do to change that. It's because the universe is ticking on a system of constant flux. Every Planck instant, and that Planck instant is really short. This is the Planck units. They're really, really short. The way you get a Planck, you take a photon, a packet of light, going at the speed of light, crossing its own diameter. So you're going at the speed of light, and as far as you're going to go is across the diameter of one photon. That's not very far. And you're going really, really fast when you do it. And that represents a packet of energy. And that energy has an equivalence to mass. And so here we have the Planck length. That's how far you go. It's not even the diameter of a photon. And then the Planck time, how long it takes to do that. And then there's the Planck mass, which is a tiny little mass equivalent, because mass and energy have an equivalence, E equals mc squared, like that. Really, really tiny. Really, 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 really fine grain ether. A Planck is so small. There are billions and billions and billions, trillions, gajillions. I don't even know what word would describe how many. 10 to the 60 or some. It's a huge, huge number. It's if you took every one of the Plancks inside of a proton. Now, a proton is the little tiny bit of mass, the little expression of mass at the center of an atom. It is a vortex of this ether spinning, is what it is. And the number of Plancks within that integer of Planck spinning in the Planck field of a single proton, there are so many of them in there. If you made every one of them the size of a grain of sand and then grew the proton to be an appropriate, the proton would then be from our sun to Alpha Centauri, make it a sphere, fill it with sand. That's how many Plancks. It's lots and 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 lots of Plancks in one proton. That's how fine-grained this is. That's how come when Michelson and Morley did their experiment back in 1886, I think that was the year, where they were trying to prove that an ether existed, an ether that connected everything. They couldn't prove it because their 1886 equipment was not equipped to pick up frame dragging of an ether that fine-grained. As a matter of fact, it wasn't until 1986, and it was done with a satellite, I think, unless it was done with something on the moon. The bounce back and forth between the two positions that then were trying to measure whether there was an ether between the two of them dragging the frames and making the time slightly different. They had to get off the surface of the planet in order to have a non-resistant and a sufficient distance in order, and equipment, modern equipment, not 19th century equipment, to pick that up. And you know, back 100 years later, they did the experiment again, but they didn't put it back together. And it should have been on the front page of every newspaper. The field exists. This matrix that is pulling us together is just such a fine-grained one that it's hard to spot. That's how come we can be so fooled about what our connection to the outside world really is, and how what you put out really is what you're getting back. You know, you didn't have any say about that person that just walked into your store, and yet you did, because your vibrational output is speaking to the universe, and the universe is responding to you. It knows who you are. It knows what you want. It knows what you love. And it's standing in the win-win position, trying to call you there. And how do you follow it? Well, your interface with it is your inner being, your vibrational greater self, who has thoughts, apparently, and is dancing with all of the other angels, all of the other non-physical consciousnesses that are all with us on the other side of the coin. I've said this before, that, you know, it's like reality is these two sides of a coin, vastly huge and infinitely small, added together, both of them linked together, and they're like, on one side of the coin, the distances look so huge, and everyone looks so alone, and so everything is so empty, and you're so alone, and to get from here to the other side of the universe is like so many light years. And do you know how long it would take you to walk there? It would take you a jillion lifetimes, and, you know, whatever. You look at it from that direction, and it has that kind of a... But on the other side of the same coin, in the realm of the non-resistant, non-physical consciousness that is supporting and assisting and participating in this whole venture of manifested reality, when you go to the other side of the coin, we're all dense over there. We're all like crowded over there. We're all alone on the one side and crowded with each other on the other side. And it's the same coin, and it's all one thing, and we are... who am I? Who am I? How is this going to get us to free, clean energy and away from off of fossil fuels? Well, that is an interesting question. In previous videos, I had been publishing a playlist. And, you know, I've changed the playlist look, and then I quit using it. So I put it black background with white forward. That's the way I look at my screen now, because it just looks better to me now. I have a hard time seeing it the other way because of my eyes. And now I don't post it either. But here's the list: Lost Century and How to Reclaim It, The Origin of Mass and Nature of Gravity YouTube paper, YouTube video describing the paper. That's the one he published last September. Then Nassim Haramein. Then Quantum Revolution. That's Nassim Haramein's Gaia series, 12-part Gaia series describing in depth the black hole structure, the fullness of space-time, the spinning space-time, the holographic universe, the new model of the Big Bang. All of that, he describes that, and how all of this feedback, feed-forward structure of the field, how it leads right to an understanding of consciousness. Oh, that's what the universe is doing. It's learning. It's learning, and we are part of the modules that are used to learn it. But you are not serving an allness that you are not a part of. The allness is handing the information of the allness right back to you. You are at the center of the allness from where you stand, and it's really cool. So then we have The Connected Universe. That's that movie made in 2016, talking about the way Nassim had unified the forces of reality, how quantum and cosmological physics has been mathematically, abstractly unified. Whether or not commercial physicists acknowledge it or not, it has been unified. And that movie was made in 2016, 4 years after the fact. It's narrated by Patrick Stewart, and it's actually a pretty big production. It's a good movie. Go watch it. It's right there on YouTube for free. Then Living in the Future's Past. That was a movie made by, well, I don't know who made it. It's narrated by Jeff Bridges. And it directs your focus to a recognition that we, whether you think about it or not, we are indeed a superorganism unto this planet. You know, and the internet is like our budding nervous system. And we have a circulation system. We have the products that mankind puts up on the market and distributes, and our communications and our transportation and our economics and it's all systems, recycling systems and production systems. And you know, we are a superorganism, and we're going to have to learn to lean into that and be okay with that if we want to make it to the 22nd century. And I personally do want to make it one way or another. I want Project Humanity to make it to the 22nd century, even if I personally, in this particular form, don't make it to the 22nd century. Inside here, I'm still going to be around when the 22nd century rolls around, because apparently none of us ever go anywhere. We are here, period. Full stop. And then we have the paper. I put the paper in there. And then actually down there at the bottom, there's go to researchgate.net and search for Nassim Haramein and all of his papers over there. And all of that stuff is over there. You can look at all of the papers that I talk about. An update with improvements and fixes being installed. Got it. Okay. Well, it better not stop this video while it's doing something in the background. I wish it wouldn't do anything before 7 o'clock. It's almost 7 o'clock. And I see that I am 1 hour and 51 minutes in. So I'm going to bring today's discussion to an end. And I'm going to go jump in the shower and get ready for my day. I do not know what it's going to bring. My husband's back is still out. We got a massage therapist coming. My world is very small. And I make no apologies for that, because there is the whole ocean is contained in every drop of water. The small is huge. The huge is small. There is no small. It's all huge. Even in its smallness is it huge. And there are no small lives. And just because I am not standing at the helm of a mighty multi-billion-dollar empire does not make me small, and you either. So maybe that's the thought I will leave you with today. We are all as big as the universe, and we need to all own who we are. Collectively, generally speaking, we need to have a better understanding of who we are. Ooh, excuse me. We've got to find a way to trust each other, you know, or at least trust each other for what we can trust each other for. So, I think we may be trying to play golf tomorrow. My husband's back still hurts, but he claims that he can play. So it may not cut me out of a show though, because it's getting cooler and cooler. We may be able we don't have to go out at 6 o'clock in the morning anymore to beat the heat. As a matter of fact, you go out that early and you start catching the cold. So anyway, maybe I'll be back tomorrow. I probably will. I love doing this show. It's my own more oral meditation as I reiterate for myself who we are and what the big picture of what we're really about is really about. And in the meantime, I've got to go find my individual way. Make peace with my own family and projects and get clear about what I want in this world too, so that I can, blend in with the win-win of the field around me. So until tomorrow, when I hope you will join me again, because I love you so much, couldn't do it without you. I really do appreciate your consciousness on this project. At some point, I will advertise this. I advertise this to no one, and I show it to no one. But someday I will, and you will be joined in the audience with more than just yourself. But until then, I really, really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this show every day. And I'll be back tomorrow to do it again. Until then, may the source be with you.